the story of the Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act and how KANDIT is trying to get the Guam legislature to do something about reforming it or repealing it altogether because of how this affects the poor and the middle class, basically people who cannot afford to go through arbitration when something terrible has happened to themselves or someone in their families. And Johnny asked for people to come forward with their stories so that members of the legislature can hear this, can see the pain in people's eyes about what they have to go through, the struggle that they have in their lives, but also, how they want to help others to never relive the nightmare that they've gone through because they've lost a loved one. And in studio today we have Miss Monica DEVERA. Thank you, Monica, for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Who has a story to tell regarding an experience she's had with Guam Regional Medical Center and the last time she saw her son alive. So, Monica, thank you so much for coming. And thank you for the singuelas. She brought us singuelas. There's a lot more in the fridge too. So you live in Tita?
Yes, I do. I'm here to share a story of my son Charles Blas. Oh God. They say that if you don't cry, you're not over their death. My son Charles had, he was born brittle bones called osteogenesis imperfecta on January 8th. And he also was recently diagnosed of having epilepsy.
What year was he?
He was born in 1991, November. Anyhow, on January 8th of 2016, I was getting ready for work and he was laying on his bed and he just didn't look right. So I said, Charlie, you okay? He goes, Mom, I think I had a seizure, but I'm okay. Go ahead and go to work. I called my other son at home and I said, I have to go to work because I have to go to a meeting. Is there a way where you can go and keep an eye on Charlie? 8 o'clock, I put the phone right next to him on the bed. 8 o'clock came and I was still calling him, no answer. So I called my other son and I said, Jay, you need to go and check Charlie. Sure enough, when he came home, when he went to my house, he said he heard Charlie screaming from the road, help. Okay? So he called me at work and he says, Mom, you need to hurry home. Charlie fractured his bones and he can't move. I said, call the ambulance and I'll meet you at the house. Went to the house. They admitted him. They transported him to GRMC. He had 3 fractures from the seizure. One in his hip, one in his scapula, and one in his femur.
Goodness.
The femur and the scapula were hairline fractures, but the hip one was really fractured that they said that they're going to have to go in and do a open reduction plating, anterior and posterior column right. I'm reading this, okay? Acetabular screws to fix after, to the right of his hip.
Okay.
But apparently the procedure was shortened and did not push through with the planned surgery on putting that plate and the screw on his hip.
Wow.
And I'll give you a reason for that. January 8th, they admitted him. They didn't do the schedule for the surgery until the 13th.
Okay.
Vital signs and everything was normal. No fever, nothing.
Okay.
So
no infection, basically, at least on that day. Okay.
So when they scheduled him for surgery at 9 o'clock on the 13th, this was what's supposed to have been done to him. The surgery was canceled. I didn't get a call from Dr. Arophilis until 11 o'clock. He went in at 9. Surgery was only supposed to be 45 minutes. It's already 11:30. He gives me a call and he says, Ms. DEVERA, just to let you know, we had to cancel the surgery because your son's bones were too brittle. It took a while for me to find where my son was at. So I
So they
didn't.
never even opened him up or anything?
They opened him up.
Okay.
They forgot to tell me that they drilled a hole in his bone marrow and made it leak. And that's what caused the infection. He had sepsis.
And this was Dr.
Arophilis.
Arophilis. He was the surgeon
Yes.
and the attending physician?
Yes. The attending physician also was that Ali Insaf. He was the one that was prescribing an antibiotic that I did research on. My son had fever of 105 for 4 days.
Oh, wow.
This vancomycin antibiotic that they administered, and I did research. I pulled all his files out from the hospital. If you do not base the weight of the patient with the dosage, high risk of heart attack is there, and that's what my son died of on the 23rd.
When you told me about this antibiotic, I knew it was, I took this antibiotic intravenously at GMH. So it's through the drip, right?
Yes.
Okay.
On the 13th and the 14th, and I have the records here, my son was given 250 milligrams every 6 hours. He was only supposed to get 40 milligrams within 7 hours. On the 4th and 5th day, they shot it up to 1,000 milligrams. Troy, every time they administered that antibiotic, my son, he's 24 years old at that time, would cry to me, "Mom, why is this thing burning on my hands?"
Oh my goodness.
I would bring it up to the attention of the nurses. What they say is, "Oh, Miss DEVERA, the antibiotic is strong, it's supposed to burn."
Okay.
But never went to the doctors to let them know what my son
The
was going
nurses.
through.
This is the nurse.
Yes.
Okay.
They released him. They decided to release him on the 19th, 7:30 in the evening. Okay, because they said his infection was cured.
So they said he was no longer sepsis?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's gonna go home, light walk. We'll do physical therapy a couple of days later.
Okay.
When we went home, Troy, it was almost midnight. No pain meds, only a piece of paper, the prescription. So I asked the head nurse, I said, "How am I going to give my son his pain meds when the pharmacies are closed?"
You have to wait until 8 in the morning, right?
"You couldn't wait until tomorrow morning because your floor here is empty." "Oh no, doctor's orders, you have to be discharged."
Oh, goodness.
My husband had to drive like a mad person on the road to avoid the bumps to put him in. On the 19th, we came home. I didn't get his medicine until the following morning. He was okay. Saturday morning, I asked him, I woke up at 8 o'clock and I said, "Charlie, I'm going to go to the bank. Do you need anything? You want to eat breakfast?" He says, "That's okay, Mom, but can you buy me a hearing aid because mine broke?" I said, "Okay, after the bank, I'm going to go straight to Island Fresh to buy it there because, they had the hearing aids there." Not even 30 minutes, I just got out of the bank. My daughter calls, and you can hear my son screaming in the background. My heart is on fire. I said, my daughter's like, "Mom, you need to hurry home." I said, "Call the ambulance." Although he had a fracture, he was moving his legs in the ambulance, Troy. When we went to GRMC again, they shot him up with this medicine, but he kept pleading with the nurses there, "Please, give me pain meds because my heart is on fire." Somebody gave the prescription to give him Love Knox. Right after they shot it on him, he was vomiting blood, non-stop blood. The doctors there was like, "We need to get a CT scan going because we need to find out if he has a blood clot that's causing the bleeding." And I said, "Whatever you guys gave him is what caused him because he wasn't bleeding this in the house." Up to this date, I vision him pulling the gurney down, saying, "Mom, please don't let me die." They did the CT scan and they called code blue. Not even 10 minutes. All I wanted was answers to my son's death because he was a good kid. He only went in for a fractured bone but died of a heart attack. I just want these doctors to stop what they're doing. I don't care about the money because it's not going to bring him back. When he died, they transported his remains to GMH on a Monday, the 25th. I called GRMC and said, "Can I know where my son's remains are going?" He said, "Oh, he's going to have to do an autopsy. They need to perform one." So he's being transported down to Dr. what's his name? Espinola. Okay. I said, "Can I speak to Dr. Espinola?" Because I was just not ready to accept the fact how he died. I wanted to find out how he passed away. So they said, the guy at GRMC said, "Don't bother him. If any,
don't bother him.
Yeah, don't bother him. Let him do the autopsy, and when the findings come, we'll get back to you." I made an appointment to see Dr. Espinola because I called. I didn't listen to him. I called.
Good for you.
I called, and they said he wasn't in the office until the 4th. And I said, "Okay, can I make an appointment?" My son's funeral was on the 5th. I could not. I was asking the lady at Dr. Espinola's office. I said, "My son is scheduled to be buried on Tuesday. Yeah. Is there a way where I can come down and see? Would there be a problem if I don't see Dr. Espinola before they bury him?" And she said, "No, there's no problem." So I said, "Okay." I went down and I spoke to Dr. Espinola. He said, "Ms. DEVERA, if I would have known that you had concern of your son's death, I would have put a stop to it." When Island Funeral Home picked up his remains, it was a Thursday, I asked Nancy, and I said, "Nancy, did they do the autopsy? What did they find?" She goes, "They didn't do one. They didn't have to."
So he was cleared
Because,
without an autopsy.
yeah. The only reason why Dr. Espinola said that he didn't perform the autopsy is because GRMC only forwarded my son's remains with the medical records of the day he went in and died.
So nothing about what he was receiving intravenously and what he was prescribed.
Yes.
So Dr. Espinola said if he had known about all those different medications,
He would have put a stop, did the autopsy, and would have found. But because already he's buried, it's a legal case. I need to go seek legal advice.
because
So-
it would have been a wrongful death by that, or that he would have classified it as or something, right?
Yes. So,
Now, and GRMC was discouraging you from talking to Dr. Espinola.
yeah.
Who at GRMC discouraged you?
You know, I have his name at my house and one of my notes. It was down at the coroner's office. I think it's a Mike or a Mark.
If you can get the name first.
Okay, and I
Yeah.
can get you that.
So then, what did you do after that?
I buried my son, put him to rest, and then I tried, was it end of February, I reached out to Attorney Keogh,
Robert Keogh, right?
and he had...
Because you knew that something...
Yeah, was wrong. And
Something
one
bad.
of my relatives said try him because he's tried handling malpractice here in Guam and he's won a case. So I reached out to him and he told me that he would have taken my case, but he's going to be retiring. And the last case that he had won with a military couple, he got them a $7.5 million lawsuit that they won, but he
Yeah.
spent $150,000 to get that.
And that was Naval Hospital, right?
Yes.
And there was a death in their family?
No, the guy didn't pass away. He just had some major injuries from the surgery that they did. Yeah. So he referred me to Sergio Rufo. He's another attorney who's off island. He was in Honolulu. He flew in and we were communicating, and he said, I'm willing to take your case, but you need to come up with $60,000 for the arbitration.
And did you know about that prior to?
No.
No. So what did you ask him about this arbitration?
I was asking him, I said, why does this have to be the first step to file a case for the wrongful death of my son? And he just said that that's the practice here in Guam, and it's sad that the legislature is not looking at the folks that can't afford to pay to come up with this kind of money.
So Mr. Sergio Rufo explained this to you, attorney.
Yes.
Rufo explained this to you. And what was your understanding of how malpractice lawsuits worked prior to that?
Well, I was never really looking into that. I just wanted to find closure for my son, Troy.
Through the court system.
But so with that being said, that he just made my spirits go down, saying I don't have the money.
Who has that money?
Nobody.
No one has that money.
Lucky you
Except
have
the rich people.
Yeah. So he said he was willing to take my case and cover the money if he wasn't that busy, but he had a lawsuit in LA that he was busy with. So I said, okay, that's okay. But he advised me that I needed to get this case going if I was going to hire another attorney. 1 year. There's a law saying it has to be filed within a year of the death.
The arbitration you're
Yes.
talking about. Okay.
So I went in. There was a lawsuit. I heard on the news, was it in January of last year? No, November, in GRMC's case. And I reached out. Dr. Shea was the one,
Okay.
and he said, there's a doctor here in Guam that used to practice at GRMC. Go and seek help with Attorney Lujan's office.
David Lujan. Okay.
Yes. So I went there, met with Gloria Rudolph,
Okay.
and she prepared all my documents.
And I noticed so you went through a court case,
Yes,
and it was a verified complaint for damages and a demand for jury trial by 6.
yes,
A civil case against GRMC. At the end of it, and it was in the court of Judge Maria Senzong. I was reading this. This is the decision and order granting defendant's motion to dismiss. Defendant is GRMC. So at the end, GRMC made a motion to dismiss based on the court having no subject matter jurisdiction. And they cited the Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act. But as I was reading it, as I was letting you know, it wasn't just subject matter jurisdiction that was the issue. Your attorney also brought up due process. Let me go to that. This is important, this due process thing. The court had the opportunity to rule on your constitutional right to due process, and the court did. Which is interesting because it's like the court forgot everything that's written in the Bill of Rights, the 14th Amendment, the Constitution. I mean, so here, plaintiff argues that Section 10102 is now invalid since there is no longer an American Arbitration Act office in Guam. Moreover, plaintiff would be denied meaningful access to the court if forced to suffer excessive hardship by paying for and having the claim handled by the American Arbitration Association. So essentially what you and your attorney were saying is, how can I have access to any sort of justice unless I had a lot of money, because the AAA, the American Arbitration Association, doesn't even have an office here, and in order to get them to arbitrate, I have to pay for travel costs of the 3 arbitrators, their lodging, so the costs go up astronomically. So it's not just the attorney's fees that you would have to pay. Now you have to pay for the actual arbitrators to come to Guam and to stay here during the period of the arbitration, and whatever other expenses that they may have, because there is no office on Guam, right? That's one of the things that the law says, is through the AAA or whatever organization can arbitrate, but there's no other organization on Guam that you found, right?
right.
And it goes on to say the court recognizes its role in determining whether the, quote, availability of arbitrating before AAA, unquote, may violate one's due process rights. That's the quotes are from the law, the Chapter 10 of Title 10, Guam Code Annotated. Villagomez Pallison versus Superior Court 2004, Guam 13, that's the reference. Again, the court is not requiring plaintiff to arbitrate through AAA, but the court determined that the plaintiff is required to actually arbitrate the claims through AAA, PAMS, or any other entity organized to arbitrate. There is no other entity. And the only entity that there is, AAA, you have to fly them in. So the court missed the point entirely about your due process rights. And is this why you're happy Mr. Lubowski and the Taidiquis are going through this process?
I think they are.
They're fighting for the same thing, due process rights. And I don't know if it's in the court of Judge Maria Senzon, but it is in Superior Court, and their arguments seem to be very close to what your arguments are about it, that you were denied justice. Tell me more about when you read this, what your thoughts were.
There's no hope. I just gave up. But I pray every day for my son to cross over and rest. He had a life, you know.
He didn't want to die.
Apparently not. You're pushing yourself, even if your leg is fractured, you couldn't move it, you're drugged down, and putting that gurney down and saying, Mom, please don't let me die. Any mother, Joy, if they can carry that burden for their child, I would have done it for him. I've seen everything. I've done everything. He didn't even go halfway. And it's sad that these doctors are just gonna let us out in the cold. I tried leaving messages after my son passed away of Dr. Rafalis. Can you please have him return my call? I just want answers.
Does he still work there? Do you know?
He wasn't practicing there. He just was called to do the surgery because he was apparently the only orthopedic doctor on island. He took over Dr. Bollinger's clinic.
And who prescribed the medication?
That Dr. Ali Insaf.
Dr. Ali Insaf. And does he still work at GRMC? No.
Even the nurses that were there
No longer work there?
Because they're H2 workers, apparently. I don't know where this Ali Insaf came
They
from.
were H2 workers?
Yeah. Nurses.
They were not H1? They were H2?
Or H1.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, sometimes they do classify them as H2 when they're not supposed to be.
After my son passed away, the whole fourth floor was closed and just recently opened.
How long after your son passed away?
He died in the 2016 January. They just opened the floor last year.
No, but when did they close it?
Right after he passed away.
Like within days?
I think it was like a month after.
A month after. And so there are other, according to this suit in the footnotes, there are other malpractice lawsuits.
I've heard of 5.
Have you tried to reach out to any of them?
I've tried only to one family, some way. I only did it through Messenger because I have no means of communication with her, and I just saw she had a Facebook. She has a pending case with GRMC for her brother. Okay. And I did message her. I know she read it, but I don't know if she was up to responding or not. I only found this document online when I was Googling my name, not even my attorney. I've made attempts since January to call Gloria.
She hasn't returned your call. So you didn't know that the case was dismissed by Judge Maria Senzon with prejudice?
And that was done since May of last year.
So I believe with prejudice means that you can refile the case, except that the judge is saying that according to her ruling, you have to go through arbitration first. And you don't have that money. You don't have the $60,000 or however much it would cost.
No.
Nobody does. Well, at least people like us, we don't have that kind of money. Is that why you feel hopeless about it?
Yes.
So
This court system is just not for the people. At least not the poor or the middle class. If you got the money, they'll make you dance.
and that's not just the court system. The legislature right now can remove that law and allow you to file for relief and for justice in the court system without arbitration. It's something that, I don't know if you've heard, but Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes.
I saw you.
Yeah. What do you think about that whole effort?
That's just the first step in the door.
Yeah. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel? See some hope?
With you guys pushing, don't stop.
We won't.
Because she's going to just put it on the side.
We'll keep pushing. We like pushing things.
I'll help you push.
You gonna help us push?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. And for Mr. Lebowski and Twyla Tidegui, they're going through the
I
same thing.
know exactly what they're feeling as a mother and a father, a parent.
They're heartbroken. In a way that none of us who've not gone through that experience could ever understand. Can I hug you?
Sure. Thank you, Troy, for everything.
Well, we're going to keep going. This is just the beginning, right?
Okay.
It's just the beginning. Do you want to add anything else?
I'm fine.
Yeah? You gonna be okay?
Yeah.
Let me keep praying for Charles.
Can I just say something?
You need the microphone too when you say it.
No, this doesn't have to be in the. I just want to say that the only way he's gonna rest is if you rest. But you have us to fight with you. You didn't fail him as his mom. We're gonna keep fighting. And as long as you're good in your heart, because you're doing whatever you can for him,
I hope
he
so.
can rest. Yeah,
Just 3 weeks ago,
the good die young.
I had a dream, that I was going down the stairs of my house, and the door was open with his slippers. And I opened the door, and he was laying down on the ground like this. And I said, "Charlie, you're home." Because, "Yeah, Mom, I'm home." I said, "Come inside and sleep." It was okay, Mom. My kids also would have dreams of him wearing the same thing, the khaki shorts and green shirt, trying to climb out of the casket.
Those are visits.
So when we get those, we just go to the cemetery, give him something, flowers, and he loves Mr. Brown, so I'm always putting that there. My 2 girls graduated, and he was always pushing them. Finish your school. So on their pictures for their thing, they have him in his family portrait with his picture there.
He was 25 years old.
24.
24.
Macy's called the following week after we buried him, saying he has an interview. Even this Jehovah Witness came in June, after, because every time I come home from work, and that's what I miss. He calls me up from work at 11 o'clock. "Mom, what do you want for lunch?" I said, "Anything, Charlie, surprise me, I'll be home." He's waiting outside, Troy, every day. "How was your day at work, Mom? Let's go eat together." Then when we're finished eating, he goes, "Just leave the food. Go upstairs and rest, and then I'll let you know when it's time to go back to work." And when I come home he wakes me up. "Mom, go back to work. I'll see you after work, okay?" Every time I come home from work, he's there in that chair in front of my house, waiting for me. If I have groceries to take in, he'll help me. I'm never gonna have that anymore. I know I'm supposed to be strong for my other kids, but it's hard. Always tell your loved ones you love them before they go to bed, before they leave their house, because you never know when you're going to see them again. Oh. I've tried seeing a psychiatrist for this. They said, we'll just give you medicine to put you to sleep. I said, I don't have a problem sleeping. I don't. It's my son waking me up with what I see in the emergency room before he died. After he died, they did the code blue. We didn't get to see my son until 2 hours later. They said, come in and say goodbye to your son. Because we couldn't, we tried. My son was so stiff and cold already when we went into the trauma room. I even told the doctors, the nurses, I said, get off my son. He's dead already. Why do you keep trying to do CPR? His body is so cold. I'd like to, that's all I ask. Tell your loved ones you love them every day. I forgot to tell my son that when he was going into CT, that I loved him. I just said, okay, Charlie, I'm going to make sure you're not going to die. That's why I feel that I failed my son. I'm sorry, you guys.
You're helping. What you're doing is helping a
My
lot of
son.
other people and keeping his memory alive, of course. That keeps him alive. But what you're doing, advocating for these things to be done, is going to help other people to not lose their children, their loved ones. I'm so sorry for your loss.
The saying of, it hurts more to lose your child than your parent is so true.
Drink some water.
I had this done for him.
What does it say? Charles Vincent.
And then the day he passed away. Yeah.
What is this? Is this an eagle or something?
It's a symbol of epilepsy.
Oh, this is the
Yeah.
caduceus,
Yes.
right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You okay?
I'm fine.
You want some singuelas?
Oh, no.
A beautiful woman brought it for us.
So Monica didn't want to do that interview. Johnny was the one who convinced her, and the only reason she did the interview was to fight politically.
Since then, she's spoken up at the hearing down there at
The legislature.
the legislature. Since then, she's been an advocate